Hello, everybody. Just checking that we're recording. We are recording. Thank you to Gillian Harvey for being here for another episode of Hello Again with me, Isabelle Broom. This is my book, Hello Again. Won't talk too much about that. I've talked about that enough already. We're here to talk about you and your books today. So do you want to start by telling us a little bit about you, where you're talking to us from, and the kind of books that you write?
Sure. Okay. So I'm Gillian Harvey, and my debut novel, Everything is Fine, was released in May. I live in France with my husband and 5 children, and the books that I write are humorous, but I hope that they've also got something to say underneath the humour as well.
In the true British sense, always disguising everything serious that we ever want to say with a joke.
Exactly, yeah. It's the best way to get a point across sometimes.
It is the best way. Now you're obviously being published in May, has landed smack bang in the middle of what shall not be named lockdown.
Yes.
How was that? Did you have a lot of things planned that didn't happen, or did you find that you had even more to do because of that?
It was really strange because, I think we all saw COVID approaching from a great distance, didn't we? And you start thinking, I hope it doesn't impact this or that. And in the end, you had to throw your hands up in the air and think, well, here we are. But so I think March was meant to be the beginning of some sort of publicity push. And that was when I had my launch finally booked in, and it was going to be in Victoria at Waterstones, and we were all going to go over to England, myself and the family, and do our kind of annual England trip and put the book launch in there and fix things and all the things that you imagine that you're going to do. And I'd had a good run up because I'd signed my contract in January 2019. Okay. So I'd been waiting for May 20 for ages. I didn't know what I was waiting for. And gradually things began. You started to think, well, at least this is still going to happen, and at least that's still going to happen. And then it got to the stage really where even though it's something that's been sort of hugely high on my radar, even I didn't really care about it for a little while. When things first went into lockdown, it really did feel like the end of the world. None of something, did we? And then you sort of raise your head a little bit over the parapet and think, okay, what can I do? So I launched on Facebook, and we did a bit of press and that sort of thing. But it obviously hasn't been the experience that I expected it to be. Yeah. And at the time, you kind of don't complain. You'd say, but it doesn't matter in the greater scheme of things. But deep down, it kind of does matter a little bit. Yeah. Like all these things, I think people cancelling their weddings, people cancelling just meals out, meeting up. And I think that we all felt selfish to express any sort of disappointment because of the terrible things that were happening elsewhere. But when the dust settles, you kind of think, I was a bit robbed there by COVID, but life goes on.
Yeah, no, I know what you mean. And I think it's fine to, to have it, to bring it down contextually to your own life. It's like saying you shouldn't ever moan about, I don't know, running out of bread because there are people starving. Of course there are, but that doesn't mean it's not annoying when you kind of toast your breakfast. Like.
Oh, for sure, yeah. And I think moaning is actually very therapeutic. So sometimes I just say to Ray, my husband, is it okay if I moan for a bit? He goes, yeah, all right. And then I just go, this is bothering me, this. And it's not things about him, it's just sometimes you just need to vent. And I think living here where we do, we're isolated anyway compared to a lot of people. And within lockdown, we really just haven't. So it's very therapeutic. Otherwise, you're just a balloon inflating with all these feelings, aren't you? So, have good moan. Just don't do it on Twitter, I think. The answer.
I seem to be meeting a lot of writers recently who live out in France.
Really?
You should all join together and have like a sort of, a retreat within France or something where you all get together. And I know France is a big place, but
no, it does sound like a good idea. We could have a kind of Anglo literary festival out here or something like that.
Yeah, definitely get a network, because I know there's sort of pockets of networking writers around the country here that sort of get together in Bristol or London or wherever it might be to sort of support groups, I suppose.
Yeah.
So yeah, that would be a good thing, I think.
I definitely connected more with writers that maybe I wouldn't have otherwise, I think, without coronavirus, just because things haven't necessarily come my way. And I've lent a lot on other writers and other debut writers as well. We've all kind of gone through it together and had our angst on a little Facebook group, and also supported each other maybe more generously, I don't know, than we would have otherwise. We've really tried to kind of pull each other up when it's been publication day and find opportunities for each other and tag each other on Twitter. So, yeah, there's definitely been a lot of reaching out. I like the idea of a French cohort as well, so maybe I'll look some of them up.
I think with book publicity, I think so much is centred around publication day, but actually a book's shelf life, so to speak, is, you know, it goes on for years and years and years, like decades, really. And
yeah.
So I think it's no bad thing that we're all thinking in a more innovative way and a way that we kind of keep that momentum going, as opposed to just having a lot of events all around publication and then letting it kind of go quiet.
That's true, yeah.
I think probably lockdown's been good for that. But certainly me starting something like this has just been so much fun, and like you say, connecting with readers that I might have only ever spoken to on Facebook but I've never properly got to know, and just talking about books and keeping that conversation going, because a lot of people want to come to events at bookshops and things and they can't go because they're already having to isolate, or they're already, you know, sort of stuck at home.
Yeah, for sure, yeah.
This sort of thing is just lovely free content for them.
Yeah, and it's opened up the world really for all of us. I'm guessing that going forward, being in France may have been a bit of a difficulty for me sometimes. So I go a fortnight of high impact whatever, and that didn't happen. But the rest of the time I would have been here, and I think it certainly made people more open. For example, on the radio, I've been on BBC local radio in England, and maybe wouldn't have been the first choice of guests, but I think the world's shrunk a little bit because of coronavirus as well. We're all living the same situation, and reaching out in different ways, which if there can be any positive outcome from this time, then that's one of them, isn't it? Sure.
Definitely. Anyway, moving on from COVID, maybe this will relate back to COVID, I don't know. The title of your book is Everything is Fine. And I always think it's hilarious how the British will say they're fine. Literally, you know, being stretchered into the back of an ambulance and your arm is hanging off by, you know, a tiny bit of your vein. And you're like, oh, it's fine, you know, just give me a paracetamol. I'll be fine.
Sure.
Yeah. But I wanted to know, what's the most ridiculous thing you've ever claimed to be fine about when you were anything but fine?
I think we do it all the time, don't we? I mean, the most sort of not massively hilarious time when I pretended to be fine is during when I had terrible anxiety in the past, and almost to the extent that it felt like inside all the time I was having a panic attack. Like I could literally have just run into a corner all the time. But I had to, as a teacher, I had to do parents-teacher meetings. But you go, oh yes, very good at spelling. And sometimes I think when you have something, my anxiety went on for years, and now I seem to have a handle in it, plenty of wood to touch. But there is a point, and you can kind of fall apart, but then if it goes on and on, you do have to pick yourself up and just the new normal and carry on. So, but I mean, more things that I suppose sometimes you tend to be fine about, smaller things that are more annoying rather than anything else, or when you've hurt yourself and you don't want to react. I mean, a very British, I suppose, reaction when I was a kid once. I was painfully shy and walking across the playing field, and a football hit me square in the face. And it really hurt, but I pretended not to even notice because I didn't know how to react. I was too shy to, and so I just literally styled it out. And so I suppose that's typical of that mentality, isn't it? Of just, if you pretend it's okay, maybe it's okay. So yeah.
Just keep gritting your teeth. Like someone takes it on a train because they push in front of you and you're like, oh no, it's fine. You sit down. Really, you're like, go away.
that kind of, that, in fact, me and my sister, we have exactly the same voice, and we're both quite softly spoken. And one time we went to a restaurant in London, and we opened the door, and then this group of people just came out the door rather than letting us through. And we both went, "You're welcome," in this sarcastic tone. But because we did it together without realising the other one was going to do it, it was quite loud. So that little bit of passive aggression was did come out. But yeah, we do have a habit of glossing over things, I think. And on social media, I think a lot of my book is about that, the way that we present ourselves on social media. And how, I mean, obviously we can't narrate every moment of our day on that, so we are going to come across as an exaggerated version of ourselves, and things looking great when they're maybe not. And I think although social media has proven to be really great at these times, and I love Twitter, I confess most things about it, but I avoid other things. But I think it does give you that impression of everyone else being all right sometimes, or having a great time even.
Yeah.
And even though, you know, I mean, we that wasn't a thing, so we kind of know reality. We know that there's a certain amount of posturing on social media, but you still get the feelings when you see those photos of smiling friends, and it's very much about that kind of false impression we all give as well.
Yeah. Was that where the idea for the book came from? Was it something you saw online, or you thought, actually?
A bit. So
yeah, tell us a bit about the book actually first.
Yeah. Okay. So Jessica Bradley, the protagonist in the book, she is a Fitspo Instagrammer, and it's kind of happened to her by accident. So she's very, very popular. But what happened was she just went on a little bit of a fitness phase and thought, I'll keep myself to it. I'll make myself accountable by sharing photos, doing a blog. And then she tweeted a particularly popular recipe, and suddenly she's got all these hits on her blog. And she does this tied to her business as well. She's in PR, and her PR business has gone through the roof because of this influencer status. So she's trapped in this fake lifestyle that she doesn't fully embrace, and she can keep it up for so long. But I don't know about you, but when I start something that's a full-on fitness regime, it doesn't stick.
No.
And so as reality creeps into her real life, she's trying to keep this persona up online and getting very stuck. But it came about, really, the idea for it was because living out here and with young children, and you can look at life in England and think, wow, why did I leave? And look at all my friends, they're always getting together and having fun. And it's really, everything that we all feel about social media is highlighted, I think, by that, or it was for me. And I said to my sister at one stage, oh, you seem to be having so much fun. And she said, yeah, but that's Facebook. Everyone knows Facebook isn't real. And what struck me most about that is, if it's not real, and we do all know what she means by that, then what is it for? And it came from that idea, I guess, this sort of alternative reality that, to a certain extent, we all buy into. And Jessica just goes a little bit further than most of us with that.
With hilarious results.
Yes, well, hopefully.
So what is it about comedy in particular that you're drawn to? And how do you go about, like, how do you know if you're being funny? Because I think it's much harder, actually, I find that I cry quite a lot of books, but I don't laugh at that many. It's much harder to make someone laugh, I think, because humour can be very, very subjective, can't it? It's a very thing.
Yeah. I think for me, it just comes from observation. And I've got, I mean, my debut, but like most authors, there's 6 manuscripts in a drawer somewhere. And I've gone through a real evolution of different styles. So I've got my deep, dark and meaningful novels tucked away, and a thriller, and my first ever story was like a ghost story, mystery type story. But gradually, throughout it all, when I look back, occasionally I got my old novels printed just for me, just so I could order a copy and feel it in my hands, even though it was never going to go anywhere at the time. Sometimes I open it on a random page just to see what it's like. And I've noticed that even when I was writing the thriller, there was humour there as well. And I think it's just by noticing things and those things being common to us all, and that really is where the humour comes from. And sometimes it comes off and sometimes it doesn't, obviously. But I think because I've been a painfully shy child, and then when I was at uni, I was only not shy when I was had a few glasses of wine in me. But I always remember having people at the table sort of all laughing at what I was saying when I was uninhibited. So I think when you're shy, you notice things, and then you pick up on different things that are funny, and things that we all think and feel, and it's tuning in with them and thinking, yeah, I've thought that creates humour a lot of the time.
Yeah.
It can miss as well sometimes. My second novel, there was a whole bit I had to take out because my editor didn't really find it very funny at all. So I think it's a learning process as well.
It's quite hard to know, isn't it?
Like, and another thing, yeah, that's it. And it's very exposing, actually, because you're going, oh, I think this is funny. And if no one else does, then I guess it's embarrassing. But I watched Humanity by Ricky Gervais, and he says in that when he was growing up, he realised how much humour was healing the people around him. Mm-hmm. And he just said this line that I always remember, which is, if you think something's funny, just say it. And that's given me confidence, just taking that line when I was trying to write book 2 and being a bit more self-conscious about it, because I knew actually people are going to read this one. Yeah. I just thought, no, I'll just be brave, and I'll say the things that I think are funny. And as I say, they didn't all come off, but some of them did, and it's worked in the end. So, yeah.
No, that's really good advice, actually. For me, it's like sex scenes. Those are the things.
Oh, God, yeah.
That I think are quite good, and then my editor just, select all and write in the margin. Tells me all I need to know about my prowess. I don't think I'm ever going to be the next T.L. James, put it that way.
Yes.
I've pretty much given up on that.
Oh, it's awkward though, isn't it? Yeah, because I mean, it's part of life, obviously, and it has to go in books when they've got relationships, because otherwise you wonder what's going on. But I'm terrible at writing sex scenes. I'm just like, they kiss, and then the next day,
I
can't really do that. Yeah, that's it.
Like camera pans from Room, I always think.
Yeah.
Like, but mine always end up like a scene out of a Carry On film. It's like Chili Cooper-esque, full of fun.
Oh, really?
Yeah, but it doesn't really doesn't go with the rest of the narrative, so it kind of stands out like a sore thumb, or stands out like something else. I won't say.
Yes.
Yeah. Sorry, that's the dog.
Oh.
He keeps scratching. He scratches his ears, and because he's fluffy, he gets his foot stuck in his fluff, and then
bless him.
Like, oh, my foot's stuck in my ear.
What kind of dog is he?
He is a Bolognese, so you can't see him. He's behind the chair, but he looks like a small cloud with a grumpy face.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah. I know. I should shut them out, really, but then they'll cry at the door. Which would be even worse. So, what can you tell us about your next novel, Perfect on Paper? Is that what it's called?
Mm-hmm. It was called something else, as they often are, and it was called The Rise of the Invisible Woman originally, but it was felt that was a little bit too factual sounding. It sounded like it's a kind of self-help book, but it's really about it. It was inspired by my life, which is basically, I can go and say something to my kids and it'd be like I'm not even in the room sometimes. Just that feeling of being invisible, that you kind of think, if I was on fire, would you notice me then? And that sort of frustration, but it could be quite funny sometimes. There's this whole thing, isn't there, about women at middle age and we're all invisible. And so it all came from that idea of, if we're invisible, well, first of all, can we use that to our advantage? And secondly, what do we have to do in order to be seen? And so it's about this woman she's not the typical ditzy, humorous character that you get in comedy books sometimes. She's very successful. She's got a great career. She's got it all on paper, which is where the perfect on paper came from.
Yeah.
But I realise that she exists. She's perfect at what she does, and so there's no disruption, and everyone just relies on her to be that perfect cog in the machine of their life. And it's about her kind of embracing life in a very strange. She makes a very odd decision in the book that leads to something quite out there, and it's all about her finding a way to get noticed and the lengths that she'll do to do that in the end. Excellent. So it's certainly me a very extreme path for her, but at the same time, I think hopefully it speaks to all of us in a way, in that we don't always notice each other, and equally maybe we're feeling invisible, but maybe other people are too, and it's our job to notice them as well, and that's sort of the idea too. So I'm looking forward to that one coming out, because I'm quite proud of it.
Hot topic as well, isn't it? The sort of what's the name of Sam Baker from the Pool? She's just started a podcast which is about women in their 40s, and it's that sort of idea of kind of you get to that point where either you've had children or you haven't, or it's almost like a wilderness, isn't it, for women? They're not getting those lead roles in TV shows or films, and they tend to be written about the families later falling apart, or the beginnings of love. And it's this kind of, I think it's sort of the best time in my life. I don't know about you. It's this kind of,
absolutely,
you know who you are. You're probably the most confident that you've ever been in terms of what you're capable of and what your strengths are and things like that. And when I was turning 40, a lot of my friends were sort of, aren't you scared to turn 40? And I was like, no, God, I'd much rather be turning 40 than 20, because, I feel a lot more calm and settled now than I did in those tumultuous years of just trying to work out who I was, and feeling not good enough for this guy, or not good enough for this job, or whatever it might be.
Yeah, I always thought people, when they said about feeling great in their 40s, that they were just deluding themselves, probably. Because I don't think anyone's... It's funny, because even a lot of books, even including mine, it's sort of late 30s, but do we dare go to 40? And it's brilliant. I like being 40. I can only imagine things getting better, apart from certainly internally anyway. And there is this turning 40 in a way, because it is a big milestone, and it makes you evaluate what you've done. And I was very lucky, I think, to sign with my agent around my 40th birthday and get my book deal before, because I'd always thought I'd do it by 30. And so here was 40, and you start thinking, the good thing about writing is it's evergreen, isn't it? If I was trying to be a pop star, too late probably. But you get better with age inside, don't you? And that's where the writing comes from. But I think certainly... I had some really tough years in my late 20s, early 30s, and you can't imagine anything getting better. And yet you somehow step into yourself, don't you?
Yeah.
And I really feel, I'd recommend 40 any day, and not the inside. And you don't care so much about the outside, which is great as well. So, yeah.
I was about sort of mid-30s when I just realised that I no longer had that fear of missing out on things.
Oh, really? Yeah.
I knew that, if I didn't go out to a party, it was because I would rather be at home reading a book, and that was fine. You sort of give yourself permission to be yourself.
Yeah.
For a long time, you fight against that to keep other people happy or to fit in.
Yeah.
And you stop caring as much. You just think, actually, what I want to do is more important. And you learn from your friends and things that actually... sometimes when you're due to see a friend in the evening, and all day you're thinking, oh, please cancel, and then they do, and you're so relieved. And it's not because you don't like your friend, it's just because you just want to know off. And
I have to remind myself of that. Yeah, when I have to cancel things, I always think maybe dancing around the kitchen that I'm not coming or whatever. So,
but in a nice way, like
yeah,
not in a I don't want to see you way, just in a
sure,
a legitimate night off. Yeah,
I think you do learn. I mean, they say this too shall pass, and when you're in your 20s, time feels different, and it doesn't feel like things will pass. But when you get to this stage and you've been through a few bits and pieces that felt never ending, or you haven't gone to that party because you couldn't, or whatever it is, and you realise there's life after the party, and it's fine. Yeah, thoroughly recommend 40s.
Definitely. Go us.
Yeah.
Right, we've reached the quickfire round.
Okay.
Little coconut shell, which was a bird feeder, full of questions. So
okay, let's go for it.
What time are we on? Yeah, we've got time to do about 4, I think.
Okay.
Number 1. Here we go. Oh, if anyone, this is an obvious one, but we'll do it anyway. If anyone watching is yet to read any of your books, which should they start with and why? Obviously the debut.
Yeah. Yeah, okay, so definitely Everything Is Fine, because it's the only one you can get, but maybe not by the time someone watches this, who knows. But I think we'll start at the beginning for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's funny and it's topical and it will make you think about your life and it will make you laugh.
Yeah.
There's no better than that, I don't know. Okay, number 2.
And I think yeah.
What is the best and worst thing about being an author?
The best thing is that I no longer have to wonder if I'll ever be an author, which I spent the first half of my life doing. And am I ever going to be good enough? Am I kidding myself? All of those things. And I guess the worst thing is that the angst carries on in a different way. You think, when you look at authors, you think, oh, to be an author. But I think we're all tortured souls, and the more authors I meet, the more I realise that's just part of the makeup. And I think it's worrying about whether anyone's going to enjoy your work, doing it well enough, and what's going to happen next. And I think that's probably something that's necessary in order to do it well, but it's also sometimes not much fun. So you have your ups and downs, and I think even very, very successful authors, that goes on a lot of the time, and the highs hopefully start to take over the lows a bit. But it's not what you expect, but then nothing is. And I'm still so really grateful that I've got this far. So, yeah.
So true. When you say it kind of is what you expect, but not what you expect. And actually, people are always saying, within the
think you're just going to be skipping around.
You should just write the books that you want to write. And I'm like, yeah, but also I know enough about the market, and I know enough about what's selling and what's not selling to want to avoid falling into a trap where I'm not going to be successful. So once you're in the industry, you carry a lot of the pressure of selling and packaging as well as everything else. And that becomes
definitely,
there's a little voice in your ear being like, yeah, but if you do this, you might have a better chance of success.
Yes, definitely.
To you, it can be quite difficult.
Yeah.
But I suppose that's where we have to let our publicity and marketing teams take over and actually think, right, this is the product, how do we sell it? Rather than let me write a product that sells. Maybe it's a bit of both, I don't know.
Yeah, there's a meet in the middle, isn't there? And probably, I imagine, hopefully things will continue for me. And I think that hopefully that gets better and better as you get further. Once you become a bit more of a name like yourself or other sort of bit more well-known authors, then I suppose you can open it up a bit more.
Yeah, it's your name that's selling rather than the actual book. And rather than the sort of hook or the concept. Obviously, if you've got both, then it's a win-win. But sometimes, people will pre-order the next Hilary Mantel without knowing what it's going to be about, or J.K. Rowling or whoever, because I would.
Definitely.
I'm definitely not on the stage yet, so one day
we can dream.
Yeah, okay. Number 3 is, the best gift you've ever received.
I think I'm going to be really kind of cliched and say my kids, because they took a long time to come along, a long time, and a bit like the writing, except interviewing it. and it felt like, I mean, 11 years ago, I didn't think I would ever be a mum, and my first IVF failed on a day when I had to take a school trip to watch The Lion King and the whole circle of life thing, and I was just, I couldn't tell you how much I was having to hold back, like bawling my eyes out in front of all the kids, and that was a real low point. So I think, and then got rather too good at it, and we've got 5 now. So 2 surprises after IVF. So it's been a weird journey, and pregnancy is not my friend at all. But they're just, I'll never stop being really grateful that they're here. And there is no better gift for me. Like, yet been given to me or anything, I don't know.
Yeah. Oh, bless you. I'm so glad that you got them. 5.
Thank you.
Oh my God.
Yeah. It's a busy household, but
I was going to say,
yeah,
I live in an isolated place, but I bet it's like quite a noisy house.
It is, yeah. And luckily, they're quite close together in age. I mean, they're 5, 6, 8-year-old twins and a 10-year-old. So they've bonded so well during lockdown. It's been really wonderful. So that's good.
I'm one of 6 as well, so I know.
How are you?
Lots of siblings, yeah, and it's amazing. Like we're all
that's great.
Close, yeah. Oh, you poor you. You must be tired. You don't look tired. You don't look like you could have 5 kids. To be honest.
Yeah, people always say that, but really, believe me, I'm all churned up on the inside. Nothing works properly anymore. But never mind. And
you're also writing books. I mean, it's just. You're a miracle worker, really. And I've got the dogs, and that's it. I don't have any excuses. Okay, the first book that you can remember reading.
Oh, I used to read The Faraway Tree. I suppose it's really stand out in my childhood, and those honey biscuits. Just reading about those. They just sounded the most delicious thing in the world, and the slide from the top of the tree to the bottom.
Yes.
So magical. And I read them again to my kids, and there's certain bits you miss out, like, oh, you're just a girl, so you gloss over that bit. But the rest of it still stands up, I think, really.
I remember those
lovely books. But I always just read everything I could get my hands on. Yeah.
The Faraway Tree and was it The Wishing Chair?
The Wishing Chair. Yeah. The Wishing Chair I read to my boys, and they got quite freaked out about it. And I suddenly thought, this is actually really weird. It is weird. I mean, if you start overthinking it, like one of my boys is maybe a writer when he grows up. He's a real overthinker, and I started thinking, yeah, it's a bit creepy when you think about it too much. This chair and these weird lands, and so we kind of moved on. We're reading Boy Who Flew with Dragons at the moment. They like that. So.
Yeah. Better to fly on a dragon which is supposed to fly than a chair.
Exactly.
It's supposed to be on the floor and not whisk you off somewhere to a goblin place.
Exactly. They're getting confused about brownies as well, because they'd only met the ones that you eat in the past. So I had to start just saying goblins for everything. So it was fun though.
Oh. There's a lot of those children's books that we used to read that are actually really creepy.
I know, yeah.
Children's films that are really creepy.
I know, yeah. They and full of death and full of really strange adults, and I mean, I love them, but you pause a little bit when you're reading out loud, and you think, I can't say that. So it's a learning process for sure.
I wonder how old they'll be when they read your book.
It's funny because you have your ups and downs, and when you're in lockdown, etc., you can. I think one of my boys, the very sensitive boy, Timmy, he realised I was a bit down about my book, and he came and he said, I think your book's really good, Mummy. He said, well, I haven't read it, but it's called Everything is Fine, and I think that's really good. And I thought, bless his little heart. Yeah. Best review so far, yeah.
I can't imagine, like, growing up with a published author mum. That's just, would have been the dream. So, good for you. Good for you. We've basically reached the end of our time, even though I could keep talking all day to you. But thank you so much for stopping by and letting us peer inside your lovely French attic and hear about your book. And hold it up again so everybody can have a look. Make sure you order it. Available paperback, ebook, all the formats.
Yeah, audiobook.
Amazing audio formats.
Great.
I'm going to be ordering a copy as well, ASAP, right after this.
Oh, thank you. That's really appreciated. And really, thanks for having me. It's been a real pleasure. Really appreciate it.
You'll have to come back when in the spring, when the next one's out, and we'll do round 2. Or maybe it will be in person.
I will do.
Fingers crossed, fingers crossed.
You never know. Yeah, I might be able to travel by then and be a bit freer. That'll be great.
Brilliant. All right. Thank you, everybody, for listening, and come back same time next week. See you soon. Bye-bye.
Bye.